can't believe they did it. We're getting Onslaught. What's going on, everybody? I am Winston A. Marshall, aka the Swaggy Blurred, and this is my episode 9 review of X-Men 97. Oh, sweet black baby Jesus, they are not playing around. If this is your first time here, please be sure to go and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you always know when I'm putting up new content, man. I really have been going at it. You should go and definitely check out the video I did previously of Drake and the Kendrick rap beef. Instead of breaking down the actual bars, because there are people that are far more sophisticated than I am that can do that, I talk a little bit more about what this rap beef has told us about the culture, the people that come into the culture, and what do we need to do, as a people to make sure that we're not just letting people just commit crimes, get away with it for music's sake, because that's kind of ridiculous. Anyways, that's not what we're here for. This is a warning. This is a spoiler review, man. I'm going to go through the episode, and then I will give my 2 cents of where I think we're going, all that good stuff. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, now is your chance to go away. Otherwise, let's do it. So the episode starts off with everybody kind of just reeling in the aftermath of the attack of the Prime Sentinels, and Magneto has busted out the OG outfit. The old school Magneto is back. We are not playing any games. And while that is going on, you also have Bastion, who is among all of the frozen Prime Sentinels. It looks kind of like a ghost town. And Charles returning to the mansion and seeing that, his chair is in complete disarray, kind of like the whole of the mansion, kind of like the whole of the team. Things do not look good for Charles and his X-Men. And while that's going on, you have Jubilee and Sunspot on the run, but they get saved by 2 very powerful lovebirds. That's right, Forge and Storm are back, and they are ready to meet up and gather with the rest of the X-Men at the X-Mansion. Now, when we get to the mansion, we do get a very interesting dialogue between Charles and Scott. Jean goes, "You got 12 minutes before the end, or 12 hours before the end of the world, so how about you hurry it up?" And Scott essentially, says to him,
"Magneto, sir? Really? What did you expect was going to happen when you tossed him to school?"
I wanted to spare you the weight of your loyalty to me. You, both of you, have done everything I have asked since you were teenagers.
What would freedom have gotten us? I still would have had to send Nathan to the future. I'd still be pulled into dealing with Bastion or Magneto or whoever else threatened the world. No matter what, I'll always end up here. Don't you know that?
Perhaps that was a mistake, because just like you, I'm right back here.
Scott was just, you could tell, was taken a little bit aback by that, because it's like, this is everything you ever taught me, essentially, as like my quote unquote father. So why wouldn't I want to be back here? I feel like that's kind of awful. And the fact that Charles says, "And look, and now I have to come back," that doesn't bode well, man. It makes it really sound like your way of thinking just was not the way to go. But again, we are out here trying to prevent a mass world extinction event, and the X-Men will work together to do that. Now, while that happens, we get this touching scene of Nightcrawler and Rogue. Rogue has woken up. Trask survived, so she wasn't aware of that because she got knocked out. So Nightcrawler and her catch up for a minute, and that's where she also finds out that Magneto is still alive. But then we also get, we've been seeing this Jean and Storm sisterhood relationship. We get to see them reunite for the first time, and how happy both of them are, and I absolutely love to see it.
Ro, you're back. Your powers
restored. What happened?
I know. We're actually relocating to the old base on Muir Island for gear and supplies. Its Shi'ar should be operational.
This was our home, a haven. If it is this horrible here, how bad is it out there?
I think their relationship is probably the most interesting to me, outside of either Nightcrawler and Rogue or Gambit and Rogue. I think that their sisterhood is so pure and honest, and it really is two incredibly powerful women who have so much in common and so much not in common at the same time. But like, who else is more badass than the two of them? Who else, is out here in these streets making all the dudes like fall for him? Who else are omega level threats on the team and can understand each other and their raw power and the responsibility that comes with it other than each other? I think that this has been a very well done character development between the two of them, even when it was Madeline prior.
He said it.
Madeline previously. I really, really appreciate how that relationship has shaped up and how that hasn't changed whatsoever. Charles meets up with the X-Men. He's in his old school chair, and you can kind of see, for example, Rogue has put on one of her traditional outfits as well as Storm. You see over there that it looks like Robbie has joined the team, which is cool to see there with Jubilee. And you just really get them talking about, okay, we're going to have to put a stop to this. We're going to have to stop the Prime Sentinels and Bastion. We're going to have to stop Magneto. We're the X-Men. That's what we do.
These guys hated us before Bastion drafted him into his killer robot army. We don't even know how many are out there. Unplug them from Bastion. But then what?
Sounds like just another day that ends in Y when you put it that way.
Precisely. And we face it as we always have.
But then you get this very interesting conversation between Charles and Rogue.
Part of me wonders if Gambit should have been buried here, on our grounds. He was always trying to outrun his past with the Thieves Guild.
Maybe if you saw us as people and not students, you'd have realized that.
She doesn't trust him, man. She really, really does not trust Charles anymore, because the last time that Charles, gave the advice, led the team, all that stuff, he abandoned everybody to go and live and rule over another planet, even though, yes, he was sick and, he went to go get healed. He could have healed and come back, but he didn't. He's been there this whole time. The love of her life is now dead, and thousands of mutants have been massacred. So Rogue doesn't exactly trust, Charles at this point. And lo and behold, as that happens, Magneto shows up with a grand offer for the X-Men, being like, yo, if you're trying to join me, I'm going up to Asteroid M. I revived it, which this is an incredible shot. I love some of the cinematography. Like, honestly, some of the cinematography in this show has been, bar none, like some of the most incredible stuff I've seen in animation. People don't always think about it because you're normally thinking in terms of the camera, like a physical camera and what's being pointed at. You're never really thinking about it in terms of animation and the shots that they set up. But these shots have been beautiful. But Magneto's like, yo, they're out here murdering. We tried it Charles's way. I'm done with that shit. I'm going to war. Who's trying to come with me? And even says it like, Charles, again, you failed. We tried it your way. I even tried to lead it the way you wanted, but it didn't work. And ultimately, you get both Sunspot and Rogue joining him. This is very reminiscent of watching the mutants that left to go with Sebastian Shaw in First Class, for those that are familiar with that film. In my opinion, probably if not the best, at least the second best X-Men film that came out of the Fox universe, but that's my opinion. But you got kind of a similar look here with Rogue and Sunspot deciding to leave with Magneto. Now, after that happens, we get this kind of buildup of everybody getting ready. You see the old school outfits, which I think is really cool. Here's another look at it. So you see we're going to the classic Marvel Girl, classic Scott, OG Storm, OG Wolverine. You gotta love it. And Charles is gonna be in his combat suit, and OG Rogue. I really love seeing these cool older outfits on display like that. I thought that was really dope. While this is all happening, Charles is actually negotiating with Senator Kelly. He's having a telepathic conversation with him in the astral plane about like, hey, please just, if you don't believe in, my message, and if you don't believe in me, please believe in my X-Men. You believed in them in the past, and look how they have produced for you. So Kelly, for the time being, is kind of letting Charles and the X-Men do what they need to do. And you see them take off for their missions. They split up into, I want to say it was gold and blue teams. I can't remember which one went to which location, but or which one was which team color. I should know this.
Rogue, you're going with me and Blue Team to find Magneto. Storm and Jean will lead Gold Team to shut down Bastion at his headquarters in the Galapagos Islands.
You have Morph, Beast, Storm, Jean, Forge, and Cable, they're all headed to go take on Bastion and take the Sentinels offline, whereas Scott, Charles, Wolverine, Jubilee, and Nightcrawler will be going to take on Magneto and his now team of him, Rogue, and Robbie. It's a pretty touching couple of moments that happen right after. So first of all, you see Scott and Jean give a very touching goodbye as they go off on separate missions. This right here is probably my favorite moment of the episode, just as far as like emotional like weight, and not devastating tragedy, but just emotional weight, and again of character development and relationship. Check this out.
Believe, not in a dream or our gifts, but in each other.
Make them mind your weather, sister.
And them weather your mind.
May they weather. Woo! May they mind your weather, and may they weather your mind. My God, why are there so many bars in this show? Why are there so many bars? I am just really blown away by the writing, and again, the dialogue being spot on, the relationships, and again, Jean and Storm's relationship is just absolutely so well done and so beautiful. It's cool to see best friends that truly form that sisterhood or that brotherhood. It's so cool to see them, and it almost feels like in some cases, man, what Charles and Magnus used to be. I think that's an important designation that we're seeing the team behind this show trying to imply, is that in the same way that Robbie and Jubilee are this kind of younger mirror image of Jean and Scott, minus the clone drama, though you sort of get a little bit of a Jubilee clone in her episode, but same thing here. You're getting a mirror image of Charles and Magnus here in Storm and Jean, but instead of them being on opposite ends, it seems like they are really connected, man, and you love to see it. We end up with a Sentinel ambush of the team going to take on Bastion, and we get an awesome fight. Check this out.
You cannot stop me and my kind. More smash!
How sick is that you end up in this fight and Morph turns into the Hulk? Morph is kind of turned into a cameo machine, and I know that some people don't personally like that, but I actually love it, man. I love seeing him just like using all these different abilities. Now, personally, from a lot of the stuff that I've been reading, I remember, at least with more modern stuff, they were saying that Mystique is about as close to a mutant god as you can get, because the only thing stopping her from being able to change so much on a molecular level that she would be able to manipulate mutant powers is her willingness to not just do it, to like work through that mental block. I was confused previously with Morph and the powers he's been using, but if you notice, he's never used any like psychic or energy-based powers. It's all been stuff that has physical attributes. So you could make the argument, I would always guess, Quicksilver doesn't work with a speed force. It's just his X gene. So I guess maybe the idea there is you're changing your muscles in a particular way that they're able to twitch well enough to be that fast. I'll give you that. But like the strength stuff makes sense to me, because he can, as he changes his body and his shape, he's just making himself more dense. You can make the argument that he's probably not as strong as Hulk. He's probably not as invincible as Colossus or even Wolverine as far as their adamantium or organic steel, but he is able to mimic it pretty damn well in the way that he fights and whatnot. Because again, he turned into magic, but he did not use any of Magic's limbo portal abilities. So he can, again, physical things he can mimic, and so that makes a lot of sense with the forms that he takes. We get Jean in an awesome battle with Mr. Sinister, who's kind of tossing around for a minute, but she definitely has the last laugh.
Madeline fights with me today.
Just straight up bodied this motherfucker. And you thought that was probably going to be the end of it. But unfortunately, she ends up having to deal with Sinister, who is now mind-controlled Cable. And she is having to fight her stepson / nephew / son. You know, she said Madeline fights with me today, so it's all in there. It's all one thing. And Jubilee is having to take on her ex-boyfriend now, since, you know, he's a little bit of a traitor, but understandably so. His mama tried to give him up to the robots that are trying to kill him. If you come in the house and you know that your son, by the nature of who he is being hunted and almost killed and all that, why would you then just tell your son to go off with them? I don't blame Sunset for being like, fuck it, I'm off this at this point. He told Charles, he was like, yeah, your little plan didn't work, bro. It didn't. We followed it to a T, and your plan sucked. So there's that. But ultimately in this fight, you end up in a situation where, you know, it's like, hey, Scott, we got to get the helmet off him. And Wolverine is able to get the helmet off. And you end up with Magneto taking a massive psychic attack from Charles, but he gets free. But as that happens, Wolverine puts in an assassination attempt. And it's the first time we've really seen the claws hit flesh. We've seen throughout this entire series that the claws do get used on robots to fight against swords or to cut belts, but they've never actually hit a human. And that's the whole thing about Wolverine. He's actually a very violent character based off of what he does. So this is the first time we actually see him stab it. And, well, in doing so, he kind of pisses off the Master of Magnetism, who truthfully has been holding back on Wolverine a lot. Take a look.
Logan, finally, this feud is over.
No! Magnus! For the love of God, don't do this!
No matter how Charles begs, Wolverine is just ripped to shreds as his adamantium is ripped out of his body back into a liquid form. And Wolverine looks like he might be on death's door. You know, he obviously has that crazy healing factor, so you can come back to it. But for those that are unfamiliar, if you're trying to wonder what's coming next, this tends to be, and I think this was the big clue right here. The big clue. This is the big clue right here. Charles in that helmet. Charles being in Magneto's helmet is really making me think, because Wolverine will go through intense suffering. The bad parts of both Magneto and Charles will fuse and make Onslaught, and Bastion's fucked, but so is everybody else, because Onslaught is no joke. And the only thing about that, to introduce us to Onslaught in the 11th hour, I don't love that. Just because trying to give us somebody that dope and that crazy in essentially a 30-minute wrap-up, Onslaught's the type of person that you could do an entire saga about. So maybe what it is like Charles and Magnus now both shut down after this, and the rest of the team has to go and fight Bastion by themselves, and then ultimately their psyches fracture and we get Onslaught will happen next season or something like that. But I really hope they don't waste him. That is such a cool villain, such a cool character concept. But all I will say is this episode was fire, man. I got to give this a 5. This is right up there with Remember It for me, as far as just the implications of what this means. Just giving people the business. People getting lectured left and right, especially Charles. Like, his arrogant ass, I swear to God, bro, he finally got put in his motherfucking place. It has been cool to see everybody be like, you're not as wise as you think you are. There's a lot of intelligence there, and you're a good man, but bro, you are not that bulletproof. So I loved seeing that. I cannot stress enough about Jean and Storm and their relationship, and just how much happiness it brings to my heart to see that, because like, that's the thing. It really feels like, what it feels like is if you got to the end of Bring It On, if Kirsten Dunst and Gabrielle Union had more time to kick it, I feel like they would be friends like that. This feels like Raven and Chelsea from That's So Raven. You know what I mean? This feels like Stacey Dash and Alicia Silverstone from Clueless. Like those are the vibes that I'm getting when I see the two of them kicking it together. Is serious best girlfriends who have stuff in common, but they just come from different walks of life. But that doesn't mean that they can't be sisters. I love to see it. That's what you want to see, man. So who knows what's going to really happen with Bastion and Sinister and how we shut them down. If it's just going to be straight up fights, if it's going to be something clever, if they're all that. If Bishop's going to come back, because that was asked, well, where the hell is Bishop? And then finally, man, are we getting Onslaught? I really hope that this is not happening too fast because, again, incredible character. But I want to know what you think. Go down in the comments, man, and let me know what you thought about episode 9 and where you think we're going for episode 10. And if you haven't already, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, man, and hit the notification bell so you know all the stuff that's coming out. Again, I recommend checking out some of the other stuff I've put out. I got more stuff coming out all week, so you don't want to miss it. Other than that, that's going to be it. I'll be on Capes and Cows on Friday over on the Christian Harloff channel. Again, please be sure to find me on all platforms at The Swaggy Blurred, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever the fuck you call it. I'm all over the place, man, so definitely come over and say what's up, and I do announce things on various places and stuff like that. And that's pretty much it. Again, I'm trying to build this out. We're on the drive to 3,000 right now. We're hitting it just like 1,000 at a time until, you know, we hit our stride, and then maybe it's like, hey, we're doing 5,000 at a time. Who knows? But right now, we're just trying to get to 3K, and I appreciate that. So do me a favor and share this video out with folks. Check out some of the other stuff I got on here, and then come on back later this week. Until then, man, be safe. The onslaught is coming.